everyone. Welcome back to Social Hour. Today I have a very special guest joining me. We've actually been connected for a few years now. We're quite good friends. So I've been waiting for her to come on the podcast and finally we're making it happen. But this is Miss Shanda Wright. She is an online income coach, just like an entrepreneur, badass woman, author now, speaker. She basically does it all, so we're going to have some really good chats today. She has an awesome story she's going to be sharing. But yeah, I'm very excited because I feel like, Shanda, you're so good at kind of tapping into people's, inner best selves, I guess you could say. You're just very intuitive, and I think you're going to have a lot of value to share with my audience today. So, hello, introduce yourself.
Hello, good to see you, gorgeous. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, it's kind of crazy because we met by just mutual friends and all of us are doing this entrepreneurial online business building, navigating it for our own selves. And so I think it's super cool that obviously we're here celebrating both of those things together. It makes me so happy.
Me too. I'm very excited. So where I want to start is kind of with your story. And a lot of people might be shocked by this if they see your Instagram or, they see you just killing it. But a few years ago, you were working in a beige cubicle. And now you're living in Panama in a mansion and at the pool working insane. So tell us, how did this go down? How does Shanda graduates high school? This is what she thinks her life is going to look like. Was it what you thought it is now? How did you go from A to B? A to Z, really.
I love that. Okay, well, I'm going to go a little bit earlier because I really think that some people are just entrepreneurs. They just have that figure it out kind of attitude. You had a lemonade stand growing up, right? That sort of behavior. So I was 9 years old when I started my first business. I was selling Avon door to door. So yeah, it's I just wanted a bike. It really wasn't this big enlightened process. It was I want a bike. I need money. How do I get money? And my best friend's mom sold Avon at the time. So I started my first business that way. I grew up in Canada on Vancouver Island. So shoveling snow for money, mowing lawns, babysitting, that kind of stuff. It was absolutely incredible to be able to kind of play that out at a young age. And then through high school, I really kind of bought the good job, buy a house kind of story. So when I graduated, I actually, within 12 months of graduating, got a job selling photocopiers to accountants and lawyers and that sort of thing. It was a very grown-up job. I wore my mom's suits to work. It was I was playing grown-up. And I used to always make jokes about this playing grown-up thing. And then what happened for me is I was about 20 years old and I was in a really bad car accident. I was stopped, he was going 100, I was rear-ended, and it kind of took me out physically. And what it made me realize was that my job wasn't going to be there for me. My job didn't have my back. It was now I was just a pain in the butt because of all this paperwork. So it really helped me prioritize living life, wanting to have the best life. And then right before that, my mom was in a car accident and she could never work again. So she was 45 and she never, she couldn't make another dollar. She couldn't go out into the workforce because of her injuries. And so I was oh my gosh, it's one thing to work until you're 65. I knew that was a little long for my likings, but I didn't know that what if I can't make it to 65? What am I going to do for income? How am I going to ensure that my family's set up? And then I watched these women growing up that were oh, I would leave my husband if I had the money. I would leave this horrible job if I had the money. And so I always saw money as freedom. And so I always wanted more than enough. So I ended up, after I was selling photocopiers, and radio stations happen to need a lot of photocopiers, which feels ironic because you'd think it would be more paperless.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up going to the radio station to sell them a photocopier, and they're like, do you want to sell radio advertising? And my boss was really like verbally abusive. He loved to yell and scream as a motivational tactic, and that just wasn't my jam. So I moved to the radio station, and I was there for 11 years. And it was super cool at the beginning because, you know, working for Jim Pattison back in the day, they used to have this sense of ownership, and everyone was very entrepreneurial. And in fact, almost everyone I started working with back then now has a business. So whether that's voiceover business or it's contracting work, voice acting, some of them actually have little garden shops. And so it was very much an entrepreneurial space where you had full reign to kind of go and create the income, the lifestyle, etc. that you wanted. And then as Jim Pattison aged, it got more and more corporate. It had to, right? We couldn't have different phone plans at every office. We couldn't, you know, it just became more corporate, and that wasn't really in alignment with my heart. And I did all the right things, right? I had this good job. So what did I do? I went and bought a house with my car accident money. And then I bought another house. And then I bought another house. And so I had all these rentals. I had all these properties. I had, you know, this income stream that was like guaranteed retirement until I started looking back. And I went to this Tony Robbins event, and Phil Town was speaking. And Phil Town was specifically speaking about the markets and how the financial markets were overinflated. Here are the indicators that we're ready for recession, that we're ready for correction. And then when I studied history, I saw that interest rates can go up. I saw that, you know, necessarily owning a rental wasn't secure. And so I started looking for other streams of income. And ironically, the place where I ended up meeting my now business partner, mentor, coach, person that changed my life, the person that made sure that we were introduced, crazy to think how much has changed since I met Melanie Greeno. But it was actually my personal trainer tricked me into a presentation she was doing in my hometown. He's like, I need you to go. I need you to go. So then when I met her, I saw this woman who had more than enough money, more than enough time, a dynamic relationship with her children, a passionate relationship with her husband. She was booking one-way tickets and just staying until she was done. I've never seen her take a vacation where she came back on time. And it's just this, we take bets now where it's like, how many times do you think she'll extend? And so I just saw this like sparkly unicorn of an online entrepreneur who had this huge coaching business. She had this huge network marketing business. You know, she had like 6 streams of income and was doing more in a year income wise than my whole family had in terms of their entire net worth. And I was like, what? I have to figure this out. And so I hired her as my coach. We started a couple of businesses together, and kind of the rest is history. Now, yeah, I went from beige cubicles, serving tables at night, working at a plumbing spot on the weekends, just doing my best to try to make ends meet, because, you know, all it would take would be a broken hot water tank, or, you know, a tenant to flood something, or, you know, if a tenant didn't pay rent, I still had to pay their mortgage. So there was at least a couple of months a year where I had double mortgage payments. So it's just exhausting financially, and I was like, I want that. I want what she has, not this. I'm tired. I cannot do this for 40 more years. And so then I started studying online income. I started studying how to create lead gen, how to move products and services via the internet, how to create residual passive income streams. And then I started learning how to grow my money in crypto and Web3, in the Forex markets, and it just in the stock market. And so I was like, okay. There's a lot better options out there. And so it's been this crazy journey now since, 2017. I've been able to pay off over $1 million in debt, start multiple businesses. Some failed, some succeeded. Now I'm living in Panama and been able to really buy back my time. And so I specialize in helping other women do the same thing. You know, whether you want to do a tech business online, like e-commerce or trading or something that doesn't require sales and marketing, or you want to build a coaching business or sell services or products, lead gen, organic content creation, you know, personal branding, that kind of stuff. It's so much. And even just sales, like teaching people how to close deals, how to build rapport on sales calls, and how to really solve problems in the marketplace. It's so much fun. I swear, it's like I work just as much, but it doesn't feel the same because, like you said, I'm by a pool half the time. So it's It's way better.
No, I love that. I can just tell your enthusiasm, and how cool is it to do something that brings you that much joy as like for a living. That's so rare for people, and as an entrepreneur, like we do, it's kind of funny. Like I would say entrepreneurs end up working a little bit more than like the 9-to-5ers sometimes. But when you're enjoying it so much, it's like, this is just my lifestyle, and I'm like helping people, and I'm learning things I want to learn, and it's just, it becomes just like your passion, and it's so much different. So it's so cool to see you so excited about it. So funny. Why have I never heard the story of how you actually met Melanie? As you were telling it, I was like, wait, I didn't even know how you guys met.
Yeah, I was tricked into it. I was literally on my way to the gym, and he's like, no, I'll give you a free class if you go here. And I was broke. So I was like, free personal training, sign me up. And yeah, it was hilarious. And then I kind of got into this like negotiation with her. I was like, well, why is your product the best? Why? Tell me your success stories. Why is this unique? And I like put her through the ringer. It was hilarious.
That's classic. That is classic. For those that, just for some context, so Melanie Greeno, who's Shanda's, mentor turned business partner now, which is amazing. She was like a really close family friend growing up, like at my house every single day. And I feel like I learned a lot from Melanie as well growing up, just like entrepreneur wise. Having Melanie around is always gonna obviously push you to like think at new levels. So, when I was like a 12-year-old sponge, being around her was like huge. And now it's so cool that you guys are working together, and you guys are just the best business partners. It's so cool to see. Another thing I wanted to say, going back to kind of the beginning of your story, it's funny how you mentioned that with your car accident or your mother's car accident, you kind of realized how having these regular jobs was not secure at all, which I think is the biggest thing people are scared of when starting a business, when being an entrepreneur, is like, oh, but that security is gone. My, paycheck and my pension or my whatever, the security that people think comes along with a 9-to-5 or a corporate job actually, in a funny way, doesn't really exist. And you actually create more freedom and security for yourself as an entrepreneur building a business, if done right, of course. So yeah, that's kind of a funny thing, and you can touch on that too if you have anything else to add. Just about like common fears people have, but really it's just kind of a mindset switch.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing, is it made me realize that I was just a number. And then I was there for 11 years, guys. Like literally I watched people who were fundamental in our process get replaced like that, and people didn't even know who they were. And I was like, everyone was replaceable in this cog of a machine. And it just made me realize, like, wait a second. First of all, of course, I have to perform here. But second of all, like, everyone was replaceable. And of course, as a corporation, you want that. You don't want to have a key player that, like, even the CEO, like Jim Pattison himself, like the richest guy in Canada, created a succession plan so that he wasn't required for his business to succeed. When he was in his 80s making a 100-year business plan, that's the kind of like, that's success, right? A business that works for you whether or not you're there and has systems that are in place. So it wasn't personal, it was just true. And what I realized, and I can tell you right now, I've worked, I have over 50 ways that, we promote people making money online or from home. I've helped people make multiple different styles of income streams. I've worked in multiple different industries. The cool thing about being in the service side, like radio and photocopiers, is you get to work with all these entrepreneurs in other industries. So I've personally worked with over 500 small business owners on growing their business and decreasing their expenses. So I have this like really cool sample size of what it's like to run a business. And what I can tell you is the reason that most small businesses fail, and the reason that people don't see business as success or as secure, is, in my opinion, because they focus on the money it brings them, or they focus on their passions. When you actually solve problems in the marketplace and you have the skill set of delivering that, like Kelsie, you'll always forever be able to make fire content. Like you understand how to create dynamic content that converts for different business owners. And it doesn't matter what the platform is. It doesn't matter how that scales. You have that skill set, and that skill set can't be taken from you. A job, a position, a paycheck, they can all be taken from you. And even investing, you can have millions of dollars in the markets and there can be a company that gets wiped out, or there can be a project that goes sideways, and it can still not be secure. And so there's no amount of squirreling money away or having a specific title. Like, there's robots doing surgery in China. Like, if doctors aren't secure jobs, like, you know. So the way that I look at it is that, you know, when I realized that no one person, and it's funny because that's actually Melanie's story too. You know, she was at the welfare office, homeless because of domestic violence, and they treated her like garbage. And she's like, no one will ever have control of my finances again but me. And so I made the same decision in that season of dealing with the car accident and seeing how my company handled it. But I didn't know how. And so there's a couple of kind of key perspectives I can share on creating security as an entrepreneur. One is the power of part-time. Jim Rohn talks about it. When you can build your side hustle after you build your paycheck, that creates some cool credibility for you if you ever want to get into coaching or leadership. But it also gives you that sense of security. Now, does that mean you're working, you know, from 5 to 9? Or from 5 to midnight and then getting up and working? Yes, of course. But you've got the paycheck while you're building your exit plan. So I do recommend that. I do recommend having, you know, 6 months worth of your household expenses in your bank account available in case of emergencies, whether or not you're starting a business. That's just basic financial security 101. But what I found was that there's no one business, there's no one company, there's no one product that's indispensable. I do believe that the era of human knowledge, like expertise based on experience, is, and Tony Robbins talks about this a lot right now, that's one of the biggest trends right now. So if you have something unique about your life experience, something unique you've overcome, like me getting out of my beige cubicle and, you know, being able to pay off over $1 million in debt, like Kelsie being able to go from serving tables to being able to build this online business. You know, if you have something that's a unique skill set or story that you can bring to the marketplace, people want organized knowledge. Organized knowledge is so trendy. But what I can tell you is when you have the skill set, when you have a skill set that is valuable in the marketplace, I believe human-based skill sets are the most powerful because robots can't replace the connectivity of humans, the ability to really be genuinely there, listen, see, hear, solve problems, cognitively meet people where they're at and take them to new heights. You know, coaching, consulting, educating, that stuff they can't take from us because we just like dealing with humans better. And so developing your people skills is going to make you more indispensable, but skill sets are what give you security because in-demand skill sets are always in-demand skill sets. And the more that you develop your skill set, Napoleon Hill and Bob Proctor talk about this a lot. You can work for a paycheck or you can work for experience. And I personally will always align myself with an opportunity to learn over an opportunity to earn. Now, the good thing is that once you learn, then you can just take the L off and it all works out. But it's really those skill sets, that education. This is why you're your best investment. This is why I've put most of my investment capital into my skill sets and into my mindset because you can't mess with that. And Viktor Frankl wrote about it in Man's Search for Meaning, that, you know, how you perceive your surroundings will dictate so much about what you get out of it. So for me, when I realized it wasn't about hitting a home run or getting it right in business all the time, it was about getting better every day. And then that creates my security. The other thing that's a really underutilized way to create security for yourself is being well networked. When you know a lot of people and you've added value to a lot of people globally, and those people are all building and doing their own things, then when you can add value to them and create those connections and develop your skill set to be world-class in whatever you do, then you're always going to have opportunity because, again, people need people. Empires aren't built alone. And so I think it's a huge shift when we realize it's our skill set, not our skill set and our connections that build security, not our title or our doctorate or our job or our investments, right? Like, I'm so grateful that I got rid of my rentals because interest rates quadrupled. You can't raise rent more than 3% a year. You know, taxes and everything went up and the income didn't match it. And so it's like, that would be cash flow negative even more so now. So I'm grateful that I was able to get out of those a while back. But yeah, that's my point of view on financial security. If you have a skill set that no one can take from you, that produces 6 or 7 figures, no matter what company, no matter what city, no matter what place you're at, whether it's sales or marketing or whatever, then you're good. That's the key. And I just work, my goal for the next 10 years is to develop 10 7-figure skill sets. So whether that's trading, marketing, lead gen, sales, closing, coaching, right? There's so many skill sets that can pay that kind of money. And if you focus on the skill set, then you've got the security you're looking for.
For sure. I love that you brought up too, like, you can have multiple skill sets. Like, if you can nail down a few, you said 10, that's amazing. That's the most security that you can have, the most freedom that you can have. You can move around, things as your kind of passions move around. Like, we're evolving human beings, so having those multiple skill sets is huge. For sure, your biggest assets in this day and age. I think it was I was listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad or something, and they were talking about just kind of like the different things throughout time that were making people the most wealth, or people had the most power. Back in the day it was land, like forever ago. And that's funny that you bring up your experience with, like, you were a property owner, and that isn't necessarily the best way to grow wealth right now. Like, it does have its drawbacks. It's not super, it's never guaranteed. And then in the industrial age, it was like, if you have, the industrial skills, or, something new, something revolutionary, that was kind of the big shift there. And then it was to information, and information was worth a lot. And now I think the new thing, like you said, is like these skill sets that can't really be taken from us, because there's a lot of skill sets that can be taken from us. As you were mentioning, like, even doctors, like, guys, there's robots, there's AI, there's all of these things. And I honestly think it's beautiful. Like, I think a lot of people, this is maybe a controversial opinion, a lot of people think it's this awful thing that we're getting replaced with robots. I think it's kind of beautiful, because it's giving us as humans a chance to do things that are more human and spend time on things that we love more. With the internet, with the opportunities that we have in 2023, I mean, it is about time that robots take over these labor-intensive jobs, these jobs that don't fill us up, these cubicle jobs that just make people depressed. Like, why do we need humans to do that? We should be able to do things that make us feel good, and that we as humans are good at communicating with people, giving information, that kind of thing. So, art, I think there is things that can't be replaced, and it's things that humans were more meant to do. So I'm honestly kind of excited to see this shift. And I mean, we're already having employment shortages throughout, like, every industry, basically, especially with young people. And, the boomers like to say that young people don't want to work these days. But I think that it's not that we don't want to work. We're working. We're just doing what we want to do because we can. Why would somebody who's 19 years old go put themselves into debt going to university, doing a job that they hate, where they're not ever going to make more than $50,000 a year, if they could go start a podcast about their favorite band and make $60,000? Like, it's not like every single person's going to hop on the internet and become a millionaire influencer person, but there's so much opportunity. I mean, there's people that are making 6 figures copywriting, just ghostwriting blogs or emails, or doing live streams on Twitch of them playing video games. Like, there's all of these things that is just completely unheard of in the past that we have now. Why would we not be taking advantage of that? There's so much opportunity. So yeah, just to kind of touch on, jobs are getting replaced, and you can kind of choose to look at it in 2 ways. One, you can be angry about it and try to fight it, which, if we look at the history of the earth, you're not going to win. You cannot fight evolution or innovation. It's not going to happen. The second choice could be to lean into it and be like, okay, what skill set can I develop? What, thing can I do, or what business can I build to make sure that I'm safe and I'm secure and I can have freedom and I can create this life that I want to live. And I like that you brought up networking too, because that's something that I've definitely learned in my entrepreneurship journey, is that you can do so much more if you have a community of people with you that you've connected with and that you've helped, or, just connected with in any way. So building up that network too, like if you feel like you have no idea how to even start learning a skill set or start a business, number one thing I would do is start to build up your network of people. If you're around people that are doing things differently than normal people, you are inevitably going to start doing that too. And I think that's exactly what happened to Shanda. You got introduced to Melanie and you were like, this is a whole new world. And then you started getting introduced to all the other people. And then all of a sudden you're in the room with these people every day. Your mind is expanding. You live with them now. So that's like an ongoing mastermind. Of course, you're going to grow and learn and keep evolving. I think that's so cool. My next kind of question for you is, what do you think is, I'm going to say the most toxic, not toxic, but I don't know, the biggest kind of like limiting belief that people are kind of shoved at a young age into adulthood, like kind of belief that holds them back, that they've just been taught is, this is how the world works?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it depends on the demographic and what part of the world you're in. A little. Because a lot of people are just doing whatever their parents did, right? And so we're looking at our parents as this benchmark of what success is, when the truth is, most of you didn't grow up with your parents at home, right? You didn't get to have your parents at every soccer game or every dance recital. And the ones of you who did you get to have the financial freedom of being able to build family memories on vacation, of being able to, have new clothes every time you outgrow them? Because that wasn't my reality. And so there's a little bit of that, like, I need to just do what I've always seen, right? The lack of vision, I think, is a challenge. But I'm finding that rarer and rarer. A lot of us saw the sacrifices our parents made and we're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work that long to retire with that little and do that much. Like, I'm not here for that, right? I'll flip stuff on eBay before I'll do that, right? I'll take pretty pictures and, build an online following and somehow monetize it. So, typically there's the ones that are open to it, right? So I would say the masses are still just kind of zombies. I call them non-player characters. They're just kind of showing up and going through the motions. That guy on Jumanji who's like, welcome to Jumanji. And he like says the same thing over and over again. Just because that's what he's been programmed to do. So I feel like that's most people. And is definitely, deciding to do something different. I'm from a small town. I never saw anyone do what I'm doing. Leave, build an online business, travel the world, do that kind of stuff, help other people, build a global brand. Kelsie, you were one of the first people that I ever met who's like, I want to be in Forbes. Like, period. That's not how you were necessarily raised. I mean, you were, because you were around Melanie and, personal development, but also like, you'll be the first one to do that in your family. So, there are those who are breaking the mold. And so I'm going to speak to that because, the not breaking the mold one is definitely more common. But the people who are desiring for more, there's, I would say, two biggest traps or mistakes or limiting beliefs that they run into. And one is that they're not good enough. So the comparison of them against other people, whether it's how they look, whether it's, what their skill set looks like, whether it's, where they come from, whether it's whatever, it's a sense of self-worth, and that they feel like they need to feel excellent before they execute. And the truth is that you pushing your limits is really the key to finding out what you're capable of. And trying a bunch of new things is more important than, getting it right the first time. And so that concept of like being explorative and being willing to fail, it's the biggest thing I see, is that people expect to be good at stuff they've never done. And so when they face a little bit of rejection, a little bit of failure, a little bit of challenge, then they think there's something wrong with them, and that disqualifies them from whatever it is that they desire. And I had this coach that put this so perfectly, that opened this in my mind. She said, an eagle doesn't desire to run, and a cheetah doesn't desire to fly. So remember that your desires are built based on your design. Anything that's in your heart is for you. You're made for it. And I was like, when you look at nature, like that's it. Like, you know, you look at a puppy and they act like a puppy. You look at a cat, they don't even want to be like that, you know? So it just made me kind of own the desires of my heart are for me kind of concept. And so believing that you have it in you, and just finding the right mentor, finding the right skill set, finding the right person to learn from is really, really the key. And that's why I didn't decide to pigeonhole my business in being this like, I'm going to teach you how to do exactly what I do. I have lots of people I coach that build income streams that I don't build, but I happen to know where the resources are. I happen to know where the coaches are. I happen to know, you know, what's missing for them. And so I can point them in that direction and coach them through the mindset of being brave and starting new things, even though I don't know how to build an e-commerce store. Well, I know someone who does, so I'll connect you to them, and then I'll support you in your journey. And so, because I just don't think there's one size fits all, and that we all should go and explore what makes our heart curious and excited and create anticipation for us and what we would actually love. It was this life lesson I got from being in the beige cubicle. I like lived there for 11 years and I did all these renos, and I was like, this was not worth it. Like the amount of work for the amount of time and the amount of money and the amount of joy, like it didn't make sense. It wasn't worth it. And so if you have a desire, a dream, something that you're like, anything would be worth that, whether it's, you know, Forbes top 30 under 30, or it's being able to stay home with your kids, or it's being able to make a living doing what you love, like when you just dial in and you're so connected to the prize that you're willing to pay the price, and then you just find a coach, it can help you navigate that. But, you know, there's no one who comes out of the box going viral. There's no one who comes out of the box, you know, just exploding on social media or, you know, making six figures. It takes time to develop the skill set, the platform, the execution, and the consistency to be able to get there. And so just give yourself a little bit of grace in the beginning. Like you don't have to, it's not like school. There's no pass or fail. It's just a learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow and get better and honor people along the way so you maintain your network, and, you know, you'd be amazed what's possible. But yeah, the challenge people have facing rejection, failure, or whatever. It's Gary Vee's biggest strength, in my opinion, is he's like, I'm just okay with failing. Like, I'm just okay with trying and not hitting. And if all of us were like that, we would be more brave, we'd be more bold, we'd go after things we want, we'd learn more lessons, we'd apply our training more quickly, we'd get more data, we'd be able to apply that to our next attempt at whatever we do. And so that's definitely the one that I see the most. And then the other one, but it's more older generation, I would say over 33. And anyone who is mad at me for calling that older, I just want to say I'm sorry.
Old, just older.
Older, yeah. People who are a little bit older, not in that beginning stages of their adulthood. I would say that there's this belief that money's hard to make. It requires blood, sweat, tears, and effort. And, you know, because it has for them up until then, they've worked 40, 60, 80 hours a week just to barely get by. And I talk to 50-year-olds who have 2, 3, 4 jobs, working 12, 18 hours a day just to barely make ends meet. And so there's this mindset that money's hard and that it's difficult and you have to go and get it, instead of really stepping into your magic and creating business systems that scale and attracting more money than, right? Like, it's a conversation you and I have had, like, it's not harder to make more. It's not. It's not. That's something I've been struggling with. No, like I know I have a good money mindset, I have a good everything, but I actually wanted to bring this up, so I'm glad you brought it up, is that there is this weird, almost, I'm going to call it guilt, for lack of better words, that I've been experiencing kind of subconsciously when I am making
this money. And like we talk about all the time, it's not a bad thing. Like, it is not that hard to make money. Like, it's hard to build yourself up to a business that, you know, is at a point now where you can scale it and make more money without much more effort. It's a really awesome thing. Of course, a lot of work went into that. A lot of failure went into that. A lot of mistakes went into that. Now I find myself kind of feeling like I should be working harder. And I'll spend more time working that I don't really need to be spending, where I'm like, I'm just being unproductive right now. Like, why do I feel like I need to be working 8, 9, 10 hours when really I only need to be working 4? But I'm kind of like telling myself like, oh no, like I need to work really hard. I don't know what it is. It's kind of a strange thing. So I don't know where that's coming from or what's coming up, but I mean, we're just so programmed to think that, you know, if you're making 6 figures, 7 figures, you must be working really, really hard. And I think I subconsciously started, like, as my business is growing, feeling like, oh, this should be harder. I can't feel like I deserve it unless I'm like killing myself for it, which is such a bad mindset that I think exactly what you're talking about. Like, people don't understand that it's not that hard to make money, and that's okay. Like, we don't, like, why do we need to, we only praise people who are rich unless we only praise people who are rich if they have sacrificed so much or like been in the trenches or whatever, and as we should, like, that's amazing. But people literally hate people that are rich and just don't seem to work very hard. And I've always thought that was so strange, like the nepotism baby thing. Like, people are really mad at people being rich, and it's because of their own lack of like abundance mindset, in my opinion. Like, why are you feeling like so angry that somebody else is well off? That is holding you back so much. Like, so this person has money, like, that is not an equivalent to, you know, are they a good and bad person? I think there's just so many weird things around money, and, you know, you're like a financial coach, so I feel like you're the perfect person to speak on like the weird things of going, like, money is evil, money is greed, unless of course you've worked super hard for it and you were, you know, a waitress, then it's respectable to have, you know what I mean? It's such a strange thing.
It's actually, this is funny because I asked the same question, right? One of the things that I consider to be my strength is that I notice patterns. So when I start seeing people of all races, genders, you know, from all parts of the world, from different generations, talking the same way about something, it makes me curious about where it comes from. Because here's the thing, like, who taught you that it's hard to make money? Right? That was something we were taught. That's no child. Have you ever seen a toddler want something from a store? They're like, give me the money for that thing. Like, there's this sound on TikTok right now that's,
totally don't get it.
They don't get it, of course. So at some point, someone taught us. And so for me, you know, I work with mostly women, and I do this on purpose because I started with a trading education company. I'm an affiliate for them. They teach people how to invest and grow their money. And for me, when I started doing these events, it was like 90% men. And I looked at Melanie and we were like, we don't normally attract this many dudes. Like, it was a really weird, from all of our life experience, all our marketing experience, it was like, where are the women? And we realized that there was a stigma around money with women. And so for me, I've started really looking at, because I analyze pros and cons of different styles of income streams all the time. And so I've given this a lot of thought, and I think about, where did we learn it? Well, there's 2 things. One is the successful people are greedy, right? But think about the typical corporate dynamic. When you have a business, a conglomerate, a company, your goal is to make as much money as possible off of your customers and pay your employees as little as possible. It's called profit margin. So of course, we are going to, because either we're the customer or we're the employee. We've never had that dynamic. And so it's about taking as much as you can from the people that help you build your business as possible, and giving them as little as possible. That's the actual tangible dynamic, which is why I love affiliate marketing. I love commission roles. I love, you know, contract work, because then it's, this job is worth this much, and it's not this game of how much can I get for how little can I give. And so there's that dynamic that is being undone by this online space with, people being able, like, think about the radio. I used to work at a radio station. And like, when you think about the royalties that the artists get, and you look at the production companies and what they take from these artists, like, the whole world up until very recently was set up for creators of, whether it's a product or a service or a piece of art, to give the creator as little as possible, charge the consumer as much as possible, and then the corporate person or the people at the top to take all the money. So it makes perfect sense to me that we're going to have that judgment around it, because that's the way society was set up. And then it was 1920 women could vote. We were property before that. So the idea that women especially are not taught financial literacy, 67% of impoverished seniors are women, and 50% of those women were not in poverty prior to their husband's passing. I have a lady I'm working with right now. She was widowed. She had, 2 young kids. She started her online business. She scaled it to make more money than she ever has. Now she's learning how to trade. She's in her 60s, and she's done crazy things in her trading account just because she wanted to secure her own retirement. And I'm like, just blown away. But this concept of like, hey, yeah, my house was paid off when my husband passed, but my income went in half, and I have kids I have to show up for, and now what am I going to do if I wasn't the breadwinner? And so understanding that as women, like, I remember my first car, I took it in for an oil change, and there was something that they needed, there was like a recall on it or something, and they told me to go get my husband or my dad so they could tell him what was going on. And like, my mom in the 80s needed a cosigner who was male to open a bank account. Like, we were not taught or groomed to understand how money works, and to feel like it's ours, to feel like we deserve it, or to feel like we can create it, to feel like we can attract it. And so when I look back at these last 100 years of what women have been groomed to believe is their birthright, and when I look at how money's been moved traditionally, it makes perfect sense. But when I have a personal policy. I call it win, win, win. I need everyone to win. I want everyone who works with me as a client to make a ton of money. I want anyone who sends me referrals or who sells my programs to make a lot of money. And I want to make a lot of money. And so we're all making money from the same transaction. So it's a value add to the world. And Think and Grow Rich says that, I will not embark. It's one of the power statements they put towards building your self-image is about, only taking on things that are for the greater good. But that just wasn't the industrial age. That wasn't what it was about. And so we have to kind of draw a line in the sand and decide, like, this ends with me. And our mothers paved this way for us to have this space, to have a voice in the business place. But we need to take up that space. And that's the challenge. That's the reason there's still a wage gap, is because we haven't been taught to take what's ours and to step into that and just say, no, I can be rich. I can be wealthy. And money just makes you more of what you already are. So for me, I'm like, great, I'm going to rescue 286,000 children from sex trafficking. That's one of my lifelong goals. Now that's going to cost $100 million, and I'm okay with that. I really am excited about that goal. It gets me out of bed in the morning, and it'll probably take me to my last breath. But that being said, not everyone would do that with money. So if you've got a good heart, I think it's your moral obligation to go out there and create wealth, because you can't help poor people by being one of them. You can't build housing that is going to set people up for success. You can't create programs. You can't donate to hospitals. You can't rescue people from slavery if you don't have the capital. And so for me, I had to shift, and instead of trying to negotiate with the poverty that was how women have been raised, and negotiate with this they take, I give energy, I just said, okay, I forgive you. That's the past, not anymore. And so when I shifted that mindset of like, it's my responsibility to go get the money, because what they're going to do with it may or may not be good, but what I will be, and then helping other people do the same thing. It's totally, and it's normal, and it's a part of the process. And it's why I always like to sit in rooms where my financial goals are adorable, Like, I was on a training call with one of my coaches the other day, and he's like, oh, I don't sell anything that's under $5,000. No, it's just, no, I'm not going to do that. I prefer 100,000 plus. I'm like, okay. I like that number. That's crazy. That's like the bare minimum. So, you know, it's just elevating your lid through exposure, making those decisions, understanding that it comes from somewhere that isn't personal and it's not a reflection of actually what's possible. It's just old. The same way that we don't have our phones plugged into the wall the same way we did in 1997. We don't need to have the same beliefs about how money works as we did then either.
Yeah. Oh my God. Obsessed. So I'm obsessed with Tori Dunlap. I don't know if you have heard of her, but she's a financial expert. She has a book now and a podcast, everything. I have her book right here. It's called Financial Feminist. And something she always says is that, you know, the biggest FU that we can do or say to the patriarchy is getting rich, like as women. And I think that's like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, the way that we can help each other and change the world and everything is getting rich and not having guilt about it and not being like, ooh, am I greedy for wanting money? I see that so much where, you know, even talking about money with like other girlfriends I have, they're like, you know, it's like kind of like a bad taste. Like, oh, you want money? Like, you would admit that you want money? I'm like, yes, of course. Like you were saying before, like that's helping women get out of these toxic marriages or situations or jobs. Like, of course you should want money and you can do so much with that. Like, it's incredible. So I think we're moving towards a different narrative when it comes to finances or wanting it. I don't think, and especially in women, that's why, although, and you touched on how just kind of interesting it is when you're in a room full of men and you're like, where are the girls? I've been in situations like that too, for sure. And there's like one other woman there and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Where are we? Like, what is this? But I actually, and I always want there to be more women in the room. That's one of my biggest goals. Like, my agency is women ran. I purposely work with women and hire women. It's something I really believe in. But there's something really cool about spending a lot of time in rooms that are male dominated, because men have this amazing just like audacity, which sometimes it's an awful thing. But in business, I think it's super inspiring. Like, that business coach you were just talking about, he's probably male, I'm guessing. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm just going to sell things that are over $100,000. It's like, women aren't really programmed to think like that. We're programmed to be like, it's okay. No, I won't do that to somebody. Like, you know, I'll give all of myself and not expect anything in return. Where it's like, no, I'm worth $100,000. I'm going to do that. And it's actually funny. Our mutual person, Melanie, that's something I think that really, like, one of my favorite things about her is that she's kind of like a man in that way, where she's like, she's such a feminine, amazing woman, but she has that audacity that's like so inspiring to see in a woman. And that's something that I try to pick up on when I'm around men, because like, women are meant for, we have it in us. We just need to stop feeling this weird guilt, or that we should always be giving more than we're taking, or never expect anything for ourselves. Like, it's okay to be selfish, because at the end of the day, if you're creating wealth and being quote unquote selfish, what is that doing for your family, for your life, for your happiness, for future generations, for everybody? There's no bad repercussion to gaining money, unless you're doing it in a very awful way, which I don't recommend. But like,
no, I'm talking about those
amazing business, right?
And it's something, literally, Think and Grow Rich is one of those books that I've read and continue to, but it says you literally, so one of the biggest human mistakes we can make, or one of the bad habits that keeps people from success, is the habit of wanting something for nothing. And so if you're willing to go out into the marketplace and give value, you should be getting money in return. And if you do give to someone and don't expect something in return, first of all, they're going to take it less seriously. Look, I've paid crazy money for coaching, and I promise the more expensive it is, the more likely I am to show up. Like, for real. And like, I show up and I pay attention and I pick their brains and I get the best of it when it's, you know, a $100,000 mastermind versus a $15 thing that I took online. And it could be the exact same content. I take it more seriously when it's more expensive. And what I can tell you is that you're not going to get wealthy unless you add value in the marketplace. You have to give something of value. And so when you know what that's why when I was setting my goals this year, I was like, okay, so I know how much I want to make. I know how many programs it means I need to sell. I know what that means for my volume. I know what that means for my marketing, but what is the result? Like, what am I giving to these customers? What's my goal that I can align with their goals? Because that's like, I get out of bed for impact. Like, I want to help people. And so I was like, in 2023, during a recession, in inflation, crazy economy, I want to help 100 women create $100,000 in results. So whether that's net worth or that's income, it doesn't really matter to me. But like that kind of excitement, it's like, now I have no problem taking your credit card because I know that you could be one of those 100. And like, if you could be one of those 100, then I can make that difference. But unless I take your credit card, you're not going to take it seriously. And I can't really help you to the best of my ability. And so when I align my impact to taking the credit card, it makes me realize that, you know, sales is just an exchange of value. Money is just a measuring stick for how much value you've created in the world and how much impact you're creating. And taking that and receiving it is actually a really beautiful experience, and celebrating it. I have a celebration ritual every time I get paid. I'm like, I donate to rescuing kids from sex trafficking, and I just like have this gratitude moment that I have this abundance and this overflow, and then I'm so grateful that I can pay all my bills. Oh my gosh, I've gone through seasons where that wasn't possible. So just like this huge gratitude, this huge celebration, and it's just this beautiful, like, you know, we have a mutual friend, Kelsie, Brianna, and she is the funnest person to give to because she so graciously receives. Like, I just want to give her stuff, and I don't know how she does it. It's just like, I want to give her things. You're the same way. I was like, I had something that was a very special celebration. It was a beautiful bottle of wine. And I was like, I know who I need to share this with because she'll celebrate it and receive it and enjoy it with me. And so if I feel that way with people who so graciously receive, imagine what the universe thinks as well. You know, when we're grateful, when we appreciate, when we receive well, then it shows that you're a place that you know, it's fun to give to. And so I use Brianna as my benchmark all the time because she's very good at receiving, and it's a lot of fun to give to her.
What advice do you have for other young women, as a successful young entrepreneur yourself? What advice do you have for other women who feel like they're meant for more but just don't really know what to start or where to start?
Yeah, get around people who have what you want. Look at the lifestyle that the career you're building or the business you're building gets you. It was one of the biggest gifts I got in radio advertising, is I got to interview all of these small business owners. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't want their life, right? They were working crazy hours for not a lot of money. They had a ton of risk and a ton of money on the table. And so I started doing some research and finding people who had the lifestyle that I wanted. And then I got around them. I remember this one time, I was Melanie's customer at the time, and she was hosting a business presentation where she was going over the opportunity to become a customer with her in a town that was like a ferry ride and 2 hours and a couple $100 away. And I would spend my weekends going to her events, even though I was already a customer. I didn't have any reason to be there, but I knew that getting around people who were doing something different, who were creating a life that I wanted and could show me how to get it, was going to be key. And I can tell you, they say, you know, the 5 people you spend the most time with are a reflection of where you're going to be. That is so freaking true, because what I can talk about with Melanie, what I can't talk about with Melanie is different than what I could and couldn't talk about around my friends, right? Some people will stop talking to you when you stop complaining. Some people will, you know, stop seeing you or spending time with you when you stop going to those events, those bars, those restaurants, those places that you've always seen them. Because they're situational friends. And if you stay in that same situation, you're just going to stay there. And so getting around people who have the lifestyle you want, joining their programs, getting around them physically whenever they're speaking or at events, just find excuses to get around them. And like literally, I've traveled to Thailand for a 1-day event just to be able to spend 2 days with Melanie, because I knew that if someone was going to be able to teach me, it was her. And it wasn't so much the teaching, it was the mindset. It's the way that they problem solve. It's how they look at things. It's how they correct their attitude. You know, the little things that you'll pick up on. And so just create proximity. You know, I spent a few years using all of my vacation time to get into rooms with people like Tony Robbins, Danny Johnson, Grant Cardone. I mean, just Ed Milet, Alex Morton. You know, those are the sorts of people who have what you want. If there's a speaking event that they're attending or one that they're speaking at, get to it. If they're hosting a mastermind, join it. Pay for their coaching. Just find people who have what you want, get around them as much as possible, and you'll start seeing the world differently, because they just think things are normal that maybe you don't. And then it can start that exposure process. It can start that belief process, because, you know, most of them are really not that special. And I know, Kelsie, like, you're special, but you're just a person who went after her dreams. And I'm not special. I'm just a person who went after my dreams. Well, we're no more special than you guys, okay? So we're just as special as you. And so you have something beautiful to give to the world. The desires in your heart are for you. Get around people who are going to speak life into that and encourage you. I've never had someone try to talk me out of what I was doing that was more successful than me. So get around people. You know, Kelsie and I always talk about getting into the rooms where we have the least experience and the lowest net worth. And I can tell you those are the most profitable rooms to be in. It's hard to feel dumb and broke, I have to admit. But if you're willing to take that humility pill and go and spend time with them, they're going to lift your lid, they're going to make dynamic connections, and you're going to learn a lot about what's possible.
I love that. I so agree. And yeah, you're right. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, that's for sure. But, you know, the amount of growth that happens, like, it feels so good. And how good is it to say something that, you know, is a huge dream of yours that most people would laugh at you for, or be like, okay, whatever, you know, tone it down, and to say it to someone and then be like, yeah, you can do that. Like, I remember when I told you, I was like, yeah, I want to be on Forbes 3 under 30. I'm like, I don't think I've ever told anyone that before, because that's like an insane thing to say to, you know, normal people. And you were like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't wait till you do that. Here's a Forbes magazine that I picked out for you to have. You're going to be on there one day. Like, super casual, as if I said that I'm going to, you know, go buy a car or something. Like, so casual. Like, how good of a feeling is that when you're like, wow, the people around me believe in me? And then it kind of makes you think, like, do my dreams need to be bigger? Is this too small of thinking? It's pretty crazy. And then my last thing for you is, what are you working on right now? What are your offers right now? How can we find you?
Yes, well, the best place to find me is on Instagram, so it's at shanda.life. Now, similar to Kelsie, you'll find lots of spammer accounts. I only have one, so do watch out for that. Shanda.life. Right now, what I'm doing is we have an online income accelerator. So this is a program that is hosted online. We do have mastermind Q&As available with that program. But if you're trying to navigate the online income space, how do I generate leads, which income streams are for me, this is a great program for that. And through this program, we've actually helped over 5,000 people pay off over 30 million in debt. So there's actually some really cool financial resources in it as well, so you can find that extra capital to invest in your businesses. So I do have that available. And Kelsie, for your audience, if anyone comes through you or mentions your name, I'll be happy to give them a discount. And then I also have a freebie that, of course, you guys can have. Just message me on Instagram, 50 ways, and I'll get you the 50 ways that you can make money from home. Because for me, it was really, I didn't realize how many options there were for me. I thought I had to fit into some little pigeonhole if I was going to create success for myself. And like, I can't create content like Kelsie can. Like, she's fire and her team is incredible. But I do know how to coach people on helping them design a life that they actually love and low-key don't need to retire from. And so, you know, understanding that you're going to have strengths, you're going to have income streams that come naturally to you. My job is to help people find that and then support them in that journey, making those connections to the right people to help them scale. But for real, if you guys want, whether it's, you know, 50 ways that you can make money from home for free, or you want to take that online income accelerator and get some coaching and ideas and resources for lead gen, for clarity, for income stream options, as well as for tapping into the spiritual side of success, that's a really great program as well. And like I said, I'm looking for 100 women to create $100,000 increase in their income or their net worth this year. And whether that's debt reduction, growing your investments and trading, or it's building your business, that's really my heart. And so, obviously that's not for everyone. Everyone's not going to work the kind of work that you need to do to make $100,000 difference in your bottom line. But if it is you, then I'm happy to help. And so Instagram's the best way to get me for sure.
Okay, can we just say, if you are listening right now, Shanda just offered you a discount. That is huge. That is so huge. Thank you for doing that for my audience. I know there's a lot of women that listen to this podcast that are either business owners, entrepreneurs, or aspiring to do so. So this is such a good place for them to be. I will say that I have been plugged into a lot of Shanda's masterminds and lives and things like that. And it's a really, really incredible place to be, a good community to be a part of. Definitely a good place to go to start your journey or expand and scale, like she was talking about. She's looking for those women, and I know that a few of you are those women, so take advantage of this opportunity for sure. I will link Shanda's Instagram and everything in the show notes, so you can find all that there super easily. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this wisdom and your story, and it's really incredible to hear from you and have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. And if you guys have the opportunity to work with Kelsie, I just want to let you know how blessed you are. She's truly world class. And, whether it's her content creation, personally for your business, or if you're actually being coached by her and any of the resources and tools that she has, you've definitely got one of the good ones here. I work with women all over the world, and truly that's why it's a no-brainer for me, Kelsie. Like 30 under 30 is done, because you truly have this heart for people, this spirit of excellence, this curiosity of your craft, and you always grow and learn and apply continuously. And so, yeah, if you guys have a chance to work with her, I just want you to know how blessed you are.
Oh, you're so sweet. This is what I'm talking about, guys. You need to be in Shanda's corner. She just nurtures the people that she's around in the most incredible way. Like, everyone surrounded by you is like evolving and growing into their best selves, whether they like it or not. That is just what happens. It's incredible. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks.